Dead Wednesday by John Morales. Monday, June 11th. Weather high 100, low 96, San Antonio people. State news. Kennedy, Texas reports of a homicide was reported by the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's spokesman said, "We believe a homicide took place in a secluded farmhouse 5 miles south of town. But what makes this case so interesting, there were no bodies to be found at the scene." As the sheriff's deputies went through the house, there were signs of a struggle and a lot of blood everywhere. I believe there was also evidence of foul play. In other state news, there has also been reports of increased violent crimes in the areas of Houston, Dallas, Corpus Christi, and Austin, as well as San Antonio. It is unknown what is causing the sudden rise in violent crimes. Some experts blame it on the heat wave that has been hitting the southern portion of the United States. A religious cult in Haddonfield, Texas, blames it on the Ramiro Comet for the increased violent crimes and warns the general population to prepare for the end. Local news. A brother and sister visiting their father's grave were reported attacked by an unknown assailant. A San Antonio police officer patrolling the area heard screaming inside the cemetery. The officer found Marcella Morales and her brother John Morales being attacked by the assailant. The officer yelled, "Stop!" The assailant did not stop. The officer assisted Mr. Morales in subduing the assailant, but the assailant got more aggressive and tried to bite the officer and Mr. Morales. The officer, with the aid of Mr. Morales, threw the assailant to the ground. Backed away, the assailant got up and tried to attack the officer. And then the officer drew his service weapon and fired into the assailant. The assailant lunged back, then forward to the officer. The officer fired his weapon 3 more times, the third hitting the assailant's neck, severing its C5 spine. Officer stated, "When I shot the assailant, it seemed that the bullets did not hurt him. He looked at me and Mr. and Mrs. Morales like a crazed animal. The sound that he made was not even human. Then he smelled was awful like a dead person that had been dead for days. But the strangest thing was when he went down after I shot him in the neck, he still had that crazed look on his face and that horrible animal sound. He was still looking at us like he still wanted to attack us." Mr. Morales said, "Hell, I thought it was one of those special kids at the developmental center that me and my sister work out there in the early 1990s. I assume one of them got loose or something." Mrs. Morales was shook enough to speak with us at this time. Neither the brother or the sister or the officer were injured in the assault with the assailant. In other local news, there has been reports of stray dogs being found on the city streets dead. A report from animal control said the dogs have been found torn apart or partially eaten. It is unknown if other animals or satanic cult is to blame, which is behind these mutilations. June 10th, Tuesday, June 12th. Weather, high 108, low 98. Nation, the increased violent attacks on the people are on the rise. Not only in Texas and other states of the Southwest have reported cases of violent homicides, people and livestock. Similar reports of homicide have been reported in northern Mexico. In other news, there has been an unknown illness that is making people sick. It is not known at this time if any relation to the comet that appeared this past weekend or not. People that are infected have been coming in to area hospitals with bite wounds and succumbing to high fevers and chills. It may be related to the comet or not. It is too early to tell at this time, until further testing. Dr. Bryan for the Center for Disease Control said, "If you are attacked and experience any complications, seek medical attention as soon as possible." World. Increased violent homicides has spread across the ocean to parts of Western Europe, northeast of Africa, and the hardest hit, the Middle East. Reports of victims being found torn apart or partially eaten is the same everywhere. It is unknown if there is a connection on what is happening at home and abroad. Local. Area hospitals had to call police due to a rash of attacks of patients and staff. There have been reports that people who survived the attacks had large chunks of their flesh being torn off from their bodies by the assailant. Similar attacks have occurred in funeral homes and city morgues, as well as at medical university. SAPD was overwhelmed by 911 calls. Other areas of law enforcement had to respond to assist the police, such as Bexar County, the Constable Department, and as well as the state troopers. The assailant that attacked a brother and sister Sunday at a local cemetery was examined by Dr. Hilda Diaz. When the assailant came into the ER room late Monday, I examined the patient, and to my surprise, there was no heartbeat and no blood flow. We took a set of vitals at the patient, and there was nothing. I thought it was equipment that failed, but it wasn't. Further examination, I realized he was not even alive. In layman's terms, I just don't know what to make of this. I know he is not dead, but he's still awake. Every time I go into the room to see him, he just makes these weird animal sounds and just looks at me like a rabid animal. He just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Chapter 2, Last Round. Wednesday, June 13th, 2012, 1:45 a.m. Heebie-jeebies. Can a doctor actually use that in our profession? I went out with her once in my senior year for my prom. Shit. I should have pursued a relationship with her after the prom. I guess I didn't give a shit at the time. All I wanted to do was get a shitload of pussy during my senior year. Damn. I should have hooked up with her after the prom. Last call for alcohol, the bartender said. Shit, one last round. Fuck it. I think I drank enough for the night. I'm out of here. As I put down the newspaper, I walked out of the bar. I started coming out to this little bar in Southtown back in the summer of 2004. Across the street, they used to show movies there, mostly grindhouse-type flicks. The first movie I saw there was Night of the Living Dead. It was one of my favorite zombie movies I ever liked, second only to another zombie flick, A Good Son. Hell, if I make it home before 2:30, I can catch the flick in the beginning. As I walked out into the hot, humid night, I looked up at the digital billboard, and it read current temperature 98, tomorrow high 111. Damn it. It is way too early in the summer for a fucking heat wave, and it's not even summer yet. Somehow I feel the tension in the air, all around me, hearing sirens in the distance. Shit, what is this world coming to? If this is the end of times, I'm fucked for all the bad shit I've done. Granted, don't get me wrong, I don't feel bad for the shit I've done. It was somewhat justified. Come on. The really bad things I've done to other people really had it coming. On the other hand, I've done some good things too. God, if this is the end of times, I hope whoever judges me looks at the good things that I've done so it can outweigh the bad. As I walked toward my car, the streetlights were guiding me toward my car across the street. I was jumped from behind by a homeless man. I think he was homeless. He stunk to high heaven. I cocked my right fist back to clock him in the jaw. As I swung to hit him, he grabbed my arm and bit me in the forearm. He had me in a really good lock, like a pit bull. With my left hand in the middle and index finger, I gouged his eyes out. I really went in all the way to his sockets. I really was seeing blood coming out of his eyes. As we both lost our footing, we fell to the ground hard. I got on top of him. I pushed my forearm into his jaw to open his mouth wider. As his jaw opened up wider, his jaw locked up on him. I rolled my arm out of his mouth, and I just started to kick the shit out of him, on his head in a blind fury. When I lost steam, I realized I killed him. I was wearing steel-toe boots, and cracked his head open, and his brains were hanging out of the side of his head, and on my boots. I looked around and I saw 2 cop cars racing down the street toward me. I started to pull my thoughts together. Come on, I said to myself. I was attacked. Justifiable homicide. I was defending myself, right? Granted, I'm a little drunk. God, I hope I don't get Shanghai for this. As the 2 cops' cars blazed past me, like I was not there. Shit, they must be in a hurry to go somewhere. Fuck it. I looked around. If anybody saw me kill this man. No one is around that I can see, as far as the streetlights I can see. I looked around at my wound on my forearm. It was a very deep wound. He just tore into my forearm, and blood just started to pour out of the wound. Blood coming down from my fingertips and onto the hot, dry street. I started to feel a little bit dizzy. I don't know if it was a blood loss or just a shock from the wound. Before I could pass out, I walked away from the dead body, toward my car. I got into my car before I passed out. I just sat there in my car until the dizzying feelings went away. As I got clear-headed, I took out the first aid kit from my glove compartment. I fixed up my arm, and the best way I could, I started up the engine and I took off like a bat out of hell. On my way home, I was passing speeding cop cars and fire trucks. I turned on the radar to see what was going on. If you just joined us, there's been rioting down in the downtown area, as well as other parts of the city, such as the medical center and other area hospitals. It isn't clear as to why this is happening. There has been reports that people earlier were coming to the emergency room and cleansed across the city from simple to life-threatening bite wounds, and fallen ill soon afterwards. Until later, for some unknown reason, the victims started to go crazy and attacked anyone that got in their way. Chief Han Gordon of San Antonio Police Department said, "The only action that any citizen should take right now is to go to your homes, lock and bolt your doors and windows. We don't need anyone out on the streets at this time. The only ones that need to be out at the streets this time are emergency personnel. We have no idea what kind of crazed, murder-happy characters are out there right now." Shit. Fuck, now, I fucked up now. God, this guy that bit me didn't take a chunk out of me. He just left his dental impressions. God, it still hurts like hell. I'm still bleeding, but not that much anymore. Fuck it, I can take a better care of myself at home. No need to go to the hospital with all this shit going on. The radio said coming in with bite wounds and litter starting to go crazy. I know that's bullshit, but still, I don't need any of those hassles either. As I was driving past Roosevelt across the military drive, I was seeing an SAPD helicopter fly overhead with a spotlight combing the ground. God, this is some heavy shit that's happening everywhere. As I turned on Ashley Street, I noticed 3 men just standing there at the corner. I turned my headlights on. They looked like they were in a very bad accident, all torn up and bloated. As I drove away, I was shocked on how they looked, but they just stood there, emotionless. Blank look like they were on drugs, or just in shock. I made a left on Yet, then right on Tideman Street. I turned on the second house on the corner. My sliding gate was open. Shit, did I leave the gate open before I left? Or did someone open it when I was gone? I went up the driveway to park my car. I got out of my car to look around. No one was in my yard, but my dog Lady was in the backyard barking like crazy. I looked at my neighbor's house. Someone was looking at me through the window. I waved at them, and they waved back and closed the blinds. God, shut the fuck up, lady, I'm already home, I yelled at her. I opened the front door, walked toward the back to let her in. She bolted into the house like she was afraid to be outside. She ran toward my bedroom, and got in between my bed and the wall like she was hiding from something. I was thinking to myself, Lady was acting weird this past week. Hell, all the dogs in the neighborhood were acting screwy this past week. Like they knew something bad was going to happen. Something really bad. Then I felt a strong feeling. I was going to throw up. I ran to the bathroom, leaned over the sink, and started to puke my guts out. I could not stop throwing up. When there was nothing left, I started to get very bad chills all over my body. Fuck, I said out aloud to myself. Shit. Maybe after a hot shower, I'll feel better. After the shower I cleaned up the bite wound, I started to feel a bit better, except my entire right arm started to feel stiff and hot to the touch. I went to the medicine cabinet and took 2 antibiotics and went straight to bed. As I lay down on my bed in my darkened bedroom, I could hear sirens blaring outside, and an SAPD helicopter flying overhead with a spotlight shining outside my window. My dog Lady jumped on my bed and started to lick the back of my left ear. It felt really good because right now I don't feel hot because the chills got worse. My head was pounding and my right arm was throbbing despite it was hot outside. I shut off my air conditioner and covered myself up with a heavy blanket, and I curled up in a fetal position. Lady, come back, and continues to lick my left ear. Drifting in and out of sleep, sirens still blaring outside. And then I start to have really weird dreams, like the kind when you get sick with a high fever. In this dream, my girlfriend was at my parents' house, lying butt-ass naked on the table in the dining room. My parents and 3 older brothers and my sister were there, as well as my 2 grandmothers and various aunts and uncles. They all gathered around the table. I walked toward her. She was lying so still, like a dead person, lying in a casket, her long blonde hair covering her breasts. As I looked around, her body was surrounded with dirt and worms. I placed my hand over her stomach by her navel and started to tear her open. The steam from her body was coming out, and blood was pouring out where I was tearing her open. I was tearing her apart like a child opening up a Christmas present, exposing her muscle tissues and intestines. I pulled out her flesh and started to eat it like there was no tomorrow. Blood was all over my hands and mouth. My family and relatives looked on and smiling at the carnage I was doing to my girlfriend. I looked back down at my girlfriend. I noticed her open cavity. There was something moving around. I reached down to move her liver aside, and a lady popped out and started barking at me. I opened my eyes, and Lady was looking at me standing there on the corner of my bed barking. My eye was focused over to the window. The morning sun was coming through. I looked at the clock by my bed. I could not focus my eyes on the clock. It was too fuzzy to see. The light was coming through the window. It must be around a little after 7 a.m., I thought to myself. Did I just hear gunfire? Is there still sirens going on outside? Do I hear people yelling and screaming outside? Fuck, Lady is really barking at me like crazy. I tried to tell Lady to shut the fuck up, but I can't say anything. The only thing that could come out of my mouth was a very low grunt. When I moved, Lady jumped off the bed and ran out of the room and down the hallway. I sat up on the bed, then I stood up. My legs felt weak. I fell to the floor. I crawled to the door and grabbed the doorknob and pulled myself up. I staggered down the hallway at a very slow pace. Where is that fucking dog? I thought to myself. I just want to tear her apart. I want to eat her warm flesh. I'm just fucking hungry. Where is she hiding, that little bitch? As I entered the living room, I heard knocking at my front door. I turned toward the front door. I heard a woman yell out, Frank, for God's sake, let me in! Rita, I thought to myself. I always wanted to fuck her, eat her warm pussy, sinking my teeth into her warm flesh and blood. I shuffled toward the door, and was having trouble turning the doorknob. Damn, why can't I turn the fucking doorknob? Did I come home that fucked up? She continued banging on the door in a panic and yelling to let her in. I was really getting pissed off. I just couldn't turn the fucking doorknob, and her screaming on the other side was not really helping me. I finally turned the doorknob and opened the door. Rita looked at me with such horror, her lovely brown skin turned pale with fright. I barely caught on her name. Rita! I said. Get the fuck away from me, she said in a panic. Rita! I said again. I felt Lady bolt out the door between my legs and ran toward Rita. She picked up Lady like a small child and backed away from me. This can't be happening, she cried out loud. I rose my arm out and walked toward her to taste warm flesh.